Flashy girl from Flushing, the nanny named Fran.
Oh, Mr. Sheffield.
Miss Fine.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Oh, Mr. Sheffield. It's a podcast about a TV show that's not on anymore that we're re-watching. It's called The Nanny, and it's from the 90s, and it stars Fran Drescher, and I'm going to keep figuring out ways to put the word "and" into these sentences. I am Sean DiPasquale, your host, and I'm with...
Toria Sheffield, and this is...
What is it?
A podcast about The Nanny.
I said that already.
Oh.
I thought you were going to say what episode. This is we don't record in the same room, nor do we listen to each other while we record.
We also were on a little bit of a break, so we're rusty again.
Yeah, we're rusty. This is season 3, episode 9, The Two Mrs. Sheffields, directed by Dorothy Lyman and written by a bunch of people. No. It may have only had one writer. Just kidding. It was written by Diane Wilk.
Yes, and The Two Mrs. Sheffields, it's named for the 1947 movie, The Two Mrs. Carols. And this puts some credence into your theory, Sean, that Mr. Sheffield killed his first wife so that he could marry Fran, because that is the plot of that movie.
See? They're teasing us with it. I mean... What if that's what the reboot show is?
It's oh my god, it's basically like You, but The Nanny.
Yeah. Yes. It starts with Mr. Sheffield getting out of prison.
And it's narrated just like You too.
Yeah. And we find out that like after The Nanny show, they got married and he struck again and killed her, and now he's got 2 widows.
I don't like it at all. I don't like any of this, actually. I take it all back.
Okay, so this episode, though, that we're talking about, that we're here today to do, this is the episode, The Two Mrs. Sheffields, and of course, that's referring to Mrs. Mom Sheffield, which is a terrifying woman that we get to meet in this episode.
Yes.
His judgmental mother, Elizabeth. And then the second Mrs. Sheffield is, I guess, Fran in all of this.
Yes, because this is the episode where Mr. Sheffield's mother comes to visit, and then to sort of spite her, he proposes to Fran, and we see the repercussions of that play out. And this starts in a flower shop. Fran is picking up a bouquet of tulips, and then a stately English woman enters the shop, played by the actress Dina Merrill. And
who is that? Who that was? I didn't even I had no idea who this lady was. Did you?
I didn't know. I had to Google it, but that just probably dates us. That dates us. And basically, Fran wants to get this bouquet of white tulips. The English woman also does, and they literally start fighting over it. And Fran goes, hey, I'm supposed to get this for my boss's mother, and I want to impress the old bag. So, you kind of already get the sense, this might be Mr. Sheffield's mother. But the other thing is they had a really funny that girl bit in this opening where when Mr. Sheffield's mom walks in and is like, oh, do you have any white tulips? And the store clerk is like, oh, yeah, we have one, but someone already has it. That girl. And it points to Fran, freeze frame. And she's literally like lifting up the pot to like look for a price and just smiles right at the camera, which is a reference to, was that girl, I think it was a 60s sitcom.
60s. This was such a weird moment, though, because they never do stuff like this. It was so weird. I was like, what's happening? Did I miss something? I had to rewind it because I thought I missed like something more setting it up, and then I had to Google why it was even happening, and then I was like, oh, this is a That Girl reference.
This is, I think, though, again, sort of as we saw in the season premiere, like we're seeing more of like the writers getting a little more expansive and creative, and maybe actually like a little just weirder and zanier as they get more creative freedom, which I actually really appreciate. I do think it's funny, though, that The Nanny getting more creative freedom also kind of looks like Family Guy more and more.
It does, right? Where it's just like cutaways.
Yeah, and hey, no disrespect. I actually love Family Guy and I'm really enjoying these, but it is tonally like shifting a little bit. Like I think we're seeing that.
Yeah, it's become like a much more zany comedy than like a straightforward sitcom about like a nanny. Like it's like this kind of stuff, like fourth wall breaking and stuff. It's very weird, but I don't hate it. So
no, I think it's actually really refreshing considering like most sitcoms of this time where they really were not doing anything like that in sitcoms. Like when you actually put it in the context of like every other, like, you know, Friends, like, can you imagine?
No, I can understand a little bit better now why the reaction at the time was like, oh, the nanny's like, we got weird in the last few seasons. But like, I'm with you. I kind of like it. Like, I like that this show just gets like weird. You know?
I agree. I think it speaks to, I mean, our sensibilities way more than just a conventional, like, you know, The Big Bang Theory or something.
Yes.
So Fran, through her wits and trickery, gets the bouquet of white tulips. And then we cut to the mansion. I should say she actually locks this older English woman in a freezer.
The refrigerator.
Yes. Yeah. So that's how she gets out.
Yeah.
So then we go back to the mansion and we establish that Mr. Sheffield is super anxious because his mother is coming to visit and she criticizes every single thing about his life. And so she actually arrives when Fran is out of the room. Like I think she's upstairs getting changed. Yeah. And the second his mother, Elizabeth, gets there, it's just like little digs. It's like things about his career. Niles isn't dressed well enough for the help. And then worst of all, she clearly loves Cece and she and Cece get along like famously. Which is always like a red flag with a person.
Which leads to a great Niles line where he leans into Mr. Sheffield and he just goes, "Shall I poison them at dinner, sir?" And
then Mr. Sheffield, he goes, "Oh gosh, Niles, no!" He seems like outraged, and he goes, "That's still 3 hours away."
Yeah,
like it's just,
also my Elizabeth, who watched this episode with me last night, really liked her skirt and Fran's skirt and turtleneck ensemble in this scene. She wanted me to know. Yeah. She really she was like made me pause it and take a screenshot so that she could look for it online.
Like truly, Fran Drescher and her stylist, who I would love to have on it. We reached out to her. They have the last laugh. Like time has shown that Fran was dressed usually so cool. Like it's so in right now.
It's so in. I mean, Elizabeth was like, that look is like so in right now. It looks fantastic. You know, she's like, it's so funny too, because that whole scene, they're kind of like, you know, Mr. Sheffield's like, you can't wear that around my mother. And Elizabeth's like, it's so weird because she's wearing a turtleneck and stockings and a long sleeve.
It's just like, it's because it's a mini skirt.
It's just because it's like she's got stockings on. So you don't even see her legs or or anything.
But then she does make a point that I think was very valid at the time. She was like, oh, as if you Brits have style. She's like, newsflash, the royal wedding photo looked like Mama's family, which it did. Like
I didn't get that reference. What does that mean?
Well, do you know the show Mama's Family?
I do, and I know what the royal wedding is, but I don't know. Was there a specific photo?
So yes, you know, at these royal weddings, there are obviously like official photos, and I mean the British royal family for years, and even now, like they dress so conservatively, and they're not. No, I mean, actually, it's changing a little because of like Kate Middleton and all that, but they used to look like straight up frumpy and conservative. Like there was just no room for anything creative or innovative or interesting in your style. It was like truly like heinous looking. I'll send you a picture of it, but it's like, you know, no, it's nothing you would look towards for like, the front lines of fashion, right?
Okay.
It's like it's like grandma.
So that's what she's making fun of there, is just that he looks
well, just that like who are you, an English person, to tell me that like this isn't like cool, because like the English royal family look like literally
like crap.
Yeah, but they're dressing in the styles of 40 years ago still. But anyway, so long tangent to say, Fran looks fine. Yeah, and I said fine, like F-I-O-N-E, because it sort of didn't really accentuate that. So just Fran looks fine didn't really communicate what I meant.
That's right.
But so she looked great. And then, we also established that, or we find out that Mr. Sheffield's father was clearly like a philanderer who cheated on his mom a lot with like secretaries, because she makes some little joke as well. She's like, oh, you look just like your father. The only thing that's missing is your naked secretary in your bed.
Yep.
And then we have this really great moment. I thought this.
The French door farce scene.
Yes.
Yes. It was so well directed. And I love this. I love, I'm a big sucker for French door farce.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like this great scene where you basically get Fran and Max's mom, Mr. Sheffield's mom, walking in and out of the same room and missing each other by seconds. So like Fran comes downstairs and the mom's like, I have to go to the restroom. And then the mom comes out of the restroom just as Fran's like, oh, I forgot something upstairs. And she runs upstairs. And then his mother walks outside as Fran comes back downstairs again. And then Fran goes into the bathroom and the mother walks in. It's so good.
The effect being that we as the audience know that these two characters have had a really horrible encounter earlier in the day, but they still have not met each other and like discovered who the other person is. So we're like, the whole time. And then I really laughed out loud. Finally, Fran opens the front door, just as Mrs. Sheffield is walking back in. And she literally is like, you followed me home, you psycho. Like get out of here, you fruitcake, and slams the door in her face and then turns around to Mr. Sheffield, who's like, mouth is agape. And she's like, do you know who that weirdo was? And he's like, yes, my mother. And I just wrote like they really set that up and knocked it down so well.
Yeah, they killed it. They absolutely killed it for sure. It's very, very funny.
Mm-hmm. And the next scene is we then cut to the kitchen later in the day, or maybe several days later, but Mr. Sheffield's mom and Cece are in the kitchen and they've clearly gone shopping with Maggie, and they have dressed her identically to Cece.
Yeah, which we always say they look like mother and daughter, and they looked even more like mother and daughter in that scene.
Yeah, I mean, they were dressed like twins, which creates the great payoff of Mr. Sheffield walking in the room and going, oh, Maggie, like, take that outfit off. You look 50, which, of course, it makes you look 50, which is, of course, a huge dig to Cece. But after Maggie and Mr. Sheffield leave, Cece and the elder Mrs. Sheffield, they start gossiping about Fran.
Yeah, they immediately start to shit talk Fran.
Yes. And like, Cece, of course, who's very opportunistic, she's like, well, I don't want to say anything, but she's a low-life gold digger.
Yeah.
And the mom's like, well, it'll be fine. Like, Maxwell would never fall for that kind of trollop. I mean, if he's anything like his father. And then like her voice trails off and they both look incredibly worried. So we established that Mr. Sheffield's mother is pretty suspicious that something's going on between her son and Fran, and she does not think that is in any way appropriate. So she then she then goes into his office specifically to talk to him about how she thinks that Fran is not a good influence on his children and that he should let her go. And it's funny because he at first is like, what do you mean she has too much influence on the children? At which point, Madeline Zima, who plays Gracie, comes walking in dressed in full face of makeup.
Cosplaying Fran, basically.
Yes. And she goes, Daddy, who am I? Let's play doctor. Are you single?
but like, okay, so but leading up to that, though, we also have this weird beat where he says something about he's trying to defend Fran to his mother. And he goes, Miss Fine always comes into my office and sits by my on the corner of my desk in one of her outfits, which is such a weird thing to share of like, yeah, she always dresses sexy and sits on my desk.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was this moment where basically the mother is criticizing him for like not wearing a suit jacket or something in the middle of the day. Yeah. And he's like, it's hot in my office. And then Fran goes, I don't remember going in there. Yeah. And then he kind of like, they both giggle and chuckle. And then he tries to explain the joke by being like, Miss Fine comes in her outfits and she sits on my desk. But I do agree. The fact that they outwardly acknowledge that she makes him horny during a work day.
And to his mother, it's so weird. It's just like, and it's also like, what outfits? That's just her clothes. It's not like she dresses up in special, like, maid outfits for him.
No, but I would say, though, she dresses very sexually.
Just provocatively.
She's a sexy dresser, and then she does get up on that desk and those shirts those skirts, they ride up pretty high.
My goodness.
Maybe. I mean, I'm just.
We also get this beat. This was also before the Gracie thing. We get this beat where Niles comes into Mr. Sheffield's office and he goes, "Mr. Sheffield, I have urgent word. Your mother is leaving at once." And Mr. Sheffield's like, "Really?" And he's like, "Gotcha, April Fools." And then Mr. Sheffield's like, "Oh." And then he's like, "Oh, man, anyway, that's fine because I haven't heard from Cece in hours. I'm worried she's gone missing." And Niles is like, "Oh, really?" And he goes, "April Fools to the second power," which is the nerdiest thing.
Well, that was a very it brought me back because to the second power is what you was the schoolyard taunt where it's like, you're dumb to the second power.
Yes, it was amazing.
It was great. And as we said, I think in the episode that aired, it aired last week to us. It'll be like 6 weeks ago to the listener. Mr. Sheffield's at his best when he's being totally juvenile.
Yes.
And self-satisfied. But also
when they're reminding us that he's like a British schoolboy,
Yes,
April Fools to the second power. It's like he doesn't go hard. He's such a dork. It's
he's such a dork. I know. Oh, I love it. But Gracie came running in doing her best Fran impersonation and skips out. And then, then his mom is like, "I know something's going on between you two and I won't allow it." He goes, "Wait a minute. What do you mean you won't allow it?" And she's like, "Well, I'd be forced to disinherit you. She's not of our class." And he's like, "That's absurd." At which point Fran comes running in with a plate and goes, "Oh my God. Hello, Dolly," spelled out in SpaghettiOs. I poured it right out of the can like this. And she goes, "Is that spooky or what?"
And then she just
I did love that.
Me too.
It was just a great, again, set it up, knock him down moment. And then though, Mr. Sheffield is still
it would have been an easy place for a Fran is classless joke, a crude joke, but it's funny that they just went with her being amused by something in her SpaghettiOs.
And yes, but genuinely thinking is this a sign?
Yeah, and look how cool.
Yeah. It was actually adorable.
It was.
But then Mr. Sheffield, who is outraged that his mother was actively forbidding him to do something, goes, "Oh yeah? Well, what do you think about this?" And he turns to Fran and he's like, "Miss Fine, will you marry me?"
Yeah.
And she's like, What? I have to think. Yes. And then they dip into a very passionate kiss, much to Mrs. Sheffield's horror. And then we cut back to Mr. Sheffield's office after a commercial break, and he's now in the office just with Niles. Mm-hmm. And he literally has his head in his hands and is wringing them. And he's
so upset.
He's like, "Oh God." He's like, "What have I done?" He's like, I dragged poor Miss Fine into my family drama just because I was trying to defy my mother's wishes. That was horrible." And he's like, "What do I do?" And Niles just goes, "I guess you'll have to marry her. You'll honeymoon in France." He hands him literally a brochure because it's so clear that Niles has already planned for their honeymoon.
Wants this. Yeah, he wants this.
And he's like, "Well, there's nothing to be done except to go through with it and live a life with her." And of course, Mr. Sheffield, as always, is completely oblivious. And he's like, "I can't do that. I really hope Miss Fine didn't take that proposal seriously. I think it was pretty obvious that wasn't in earnest." We cut quickly to Sylvia's apartment where Fran is literally in a fully fitted wedding gown reviewing a guest list with Sylvia and Val. And there's some really funny moments where they're going through the guest list and they realize that because they had clearly planned for this wedding so many years ago that now a ton of the people on the list are dead. And Fran goes, "Ma, this might mean we can spring for the double stuffed potatoes because the guest list will be smaller."
She also wants to play that funky music White Boy to be her first dance, which I thought was really funny. I also thought she goes, Fran's mom goes, "Oh, I can't believe I wore that dress when I was your age." And Fran goes, "'Cause the wedding dress." And Fran goes, "Yeah, well, don't tell Mr. Sheffield that. No need to give him a crystal ball."
Yep. As she eats a bite of chocolate.
She eats chocolate. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was very funny. I wonder too. So I have a question. Do you think that men really like look at their partner's moms to be like,
I was always raised by my mother, who is like, when you meet a girl and you think she's the one, make sure you meet her mother first, because whatever her mother looks like, that's what she's going to look like when she gets old. And I was like, okay, noted.
Also, what if there's plenty of girls that take after their father's side, I'm sure. Like,
I think it's just about like, you know, what at their base they're going to look like, you know? Like, obviously people can like work out more than their parents, and parents get like medical issues that like maybe the kids don't get, but I don't know.
I don't know. That actually does frighten me.
I will say this. I've looked back at a lot of ex-girlfriends now and been like, oh yeah, they do kind of look like their mom.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say, I will say this. Liz's mom is a babe or something.
She is.
That. Yeah. That's good. I think I've seen a picture of Liz's mom, and she's
gorgeous.
Like,
she's a beautiful lady.
And with like very still like stylish is what I think I remember.
Yep. Yeah. She's like very stylish, very like classy and well put together, and you know, yeah.
Well, my mom wears muumuus, so
no. All right. We're gonna have this so much to cut.
We'll cut. Okay, but then just as this is happening, Fran starts to realize that something is off about this whole thing, because Val's literally like, Fran, it's so crazy that he proposed to you, like especially when his mother was visiting. Didn't you say that he would literally do anything to make her angry or something like that?
Well,
like,
there's a great line where I forget what brings Fran to it, but it's actually Fran goes, "Don't you get it? He proposed to me to get back at his mother." And Val goes, "Oh." And then there's a beat, and then she goes, "Well, it's a good thing she showed up."
yeah. Val goes, "It's a good thing she came."
Yeah.
And then also, Val goes, Fran goes, "Well, like, I can't marry him now. The proposal wasn't in earnest." And then Val goes, "Really? You can't? Gee, you think you really know someone."
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
But so Val's like, "Well, what are you going to do?" And Fran's like, "What any woman would. I'm going to mess with his head so bad. He's going to look like Mr. Softy," which I don't know if Mr. Softy exists outside of New York.
It's like the curly ice cream cone head guy,
like
right?
It's the swirly
ice cream guy.
Yeah,
I think everybody knows Mr. Frosty.
Yeah, but basically she's going to spin his head around like so super hard, which then my note is this then sets up a scene with some of the most physical contact we've ever seen between Fran and Mr. Sheffield. Like,
well, she throws herself at him.
Because basically, so in the next scene, Mr. Sheffield knocks on the door at Sylvia's apartment, and Fran opens it in this like super kind of like sexy like bridal outfit. You know, it's all white, mini skirt, and that's when she throws herself out. She's like, "I'm so glad you're here, darling." Kisses him, and then he's like, "Oh, wait, Miss Fine. I mean, Fran." And she's like, "What does it matter? After the honeymoon, it's just going to be, wait, so what was it? R is a pirate. What's the sexy way to do it? Girl."
Wait, oh, no. What?
She does that like sexy. Hey guys, now everyone knows way too much about my limited abilities to be a minx. But goodness. she's like, grrr.
She goes, grrr.
Yeah, that's it. That's
she rolls her tongue. She doesn't go R. Yeah, she goes R.
That's it. That's the one that ladies do.
Hello, me matey.
I'm like, yeah, me sexy too. I knew that. I knew that's what lady.
Me so excited to get you in bed.
But yeah, so she's like throwing herself at him, and she's basically just.
I hate the sea, but I love your dick.
Give me, and no, I was going to go for a semen joke, but I just didn't feel like it anymore. I stopped halfway through it. But anyway, so she's like throwing herself at him and really just like laying it on thick that she's like so happy and excited that they're going to be married. And he's getting like, you know, increasingly more guilty and feeling like he's increasingly getting dug in a hole. And then he's like, no, wait, Miss Fine. As literally she's on top of him on the couch, like kissing his face and neck. And he's like, there's something I need to tell you. And she's like, I already know. And I want my parents to move in with us too.
Yeah.
So she's just torturing him. And then his mother arrives because clearly Fran had invited her over, and the joke just goes even harder because then we see Sylvia and
Sylvia's clearly, and Val, they're both clearly like, they've planned.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So it's like basically they're just laying it on so thick, and they're like, we're family now and this and that. And then Mrs. Sheffield basically goes, you know what, Maxwell, like I know what you're doing. You're just doing this to spite me. And she actually has some line where she says like, you don't raise a child for 4 years before you send them to boarding school and not know what they're up to. So, which I thought was funny, but she's like, you're just doing this to hurt me.
Yeah.
And, then Fran goes, oh no, like, you know, I've lived with this man for almost 3 years and he would never do such a horrible thing to me. So now she's just really giving him the guilt trip. And she was like, this would be so hurtful that literally nothing he could ever do could make it up to me. Except a Caribbean cruise. And that's when he kind of realizes that like,
what's happening.
Yeah. He realizes what's happening. And he ultimately apologizes to Fran, but also, you know, his mother says like, you know, I know you despise me. And he's like, I don't despise you. And he's like, I don't actually know you well enough to despise you. And this is where I thought there was this slightly missed opportunity where I thought there was going to be like some kind of reconciliation between like mother and child, you know, sort of whereas like when his nanny came to visit, we thought she was really awful. But then at the end, we realized like there was a lot more to her than we realized. But then basically his mother is just kind of like, well, I'll be off. It's just sort of like, there's no like, oh, you know, I tried to be the best mother I could. I wish I had done it differently. Or like, you know, I'll always love you. She just still stays shitty and leaves.
Dude, that was my one like big note on this episode is the resolution of it all was so weird because there is none. Like she just acknowledges like, I'm not a very attentive mother. Goodbye. And then that's it.
Which, hey, maybe that's more realistic for real life, but it did feel weird in a sitcom. But so nothing about their dynamic actually changes.
No, there's no closure there at all. They don't come to like a moment where she's like, you know what? I'm a real dick about this. And, you know, and I'm proud of you for being a man and not going through with a fake wedding to a lady you don't really care about. Like, it was very strange.
She could have also potentially been like, you know, the fact that you felt the need to do this makes me sad, and you know, but I love you unconditionally.
Right. I don't want to drive you to a fake wedding, like just out of revenge, son. Yeah, no, but they really were like, all right, that's it.
Yes, they really focused
22 minutes.
They really focused on the emotional arc being resolution between Fran and Mr. Sheffield, which was actually maybe like less important given that it was like a mother-child dynamic happening.
Well, and also given that aspect didn't even happen until like the second half. Like the setup seemed to be, oh, Max is going to deal with mother issues. And then instead, halfway through the episode, it's like, this is a low-key Max and Fran episode.
Yeah. So yeah, that was, I picked up on the same thing, felt a little unsatisfied with that. But so then, you know, the mother leaves, and he again apologizes to Fran, and she's like, it's fine. And he's like, no, really, what can I do to make it up to you? And she's like, well, no, first she's like, nothing, you're insulting me. And then she's like, well, there are 3 things. She's like, firstly, don't tell Niles this was fake. Sorry, she goes, don't tell Miss Babcock this was fake for 48 hours. I promise, Niles. And then she goes, also, you need to break it to my mother, which actually slightly confused me because I had thought that Sylvia was in on it because she seemed to be also laying it on so thick. But then I felt really bad that she actually was just so excited to meet Fran's future mother-in-law. And then she says in the third is, she goes, you can return this for me. I was going to wear it on our honeymoon. And then he looks in the bag and he goes, this is just lip gloss. And she goes, suffer. So that's the end.
Yeah.
Which is like kind of
Great
funny.
ending.
But you know what? Now that I'm also talking this through, also kind of weird that we don't address the fact that she was completely happy to marry him. And would have just been like, great, this is my life now, when we hadn't earned them ever saying I love you. We hadn't earned them falling for each other. Like, it kind of makes me sad for Fran.
Yes. Well,
you know, like that's a big emotional, that actually like is a huge emotional arc or beat.
And she was just like, whatever, at least it's finally happening.
Yeah, it also felt a little, I mean, yeah, like it felt a little like just written this way so we could have this conflict, but not necessarily earned, because like in reality, based on where they are in their relationship, she probably wouldn't have said yes, right? Like neither of them, she's not self-aware enough to know she's in love with him or wants to be with him. So I think it like slightly undermines that when she then accepts a proposal for marriage. But regardless, you know, there was definitely, you know, that was the whole episode. There was definitely funny stuff. But of what we've seen this season, it's not like in my top 2, I would say. Yeah, it was a strong episode, but uneven. Like there was some strong stuff in there, but it was very uneven. Yeah. And emotionally it was unsatisfying, I think, ultimately. Yeah, I agree. Because like, again, when I think of this show, like at its best, like I keep comparing it to the Maxwell's Nanny episode just because there's like some parallels. Right. I remember us talking about that episode and me being like, I got a little emotional. Yeah. Like, you know, like because the show has the capacity to do that. But it'll also be interesting because it's like, as it gets a little zanier in ways that we enjoy, will it also start to sort of lose its emotional impact, which we also really enjoyed? Yeah, maybe, I mean, isn't that yes, sort of a natural? I don't know, because I think of more like zanier sitcoms that I like, you know, 30 Rock or Arrested Development, you know, and those shows, while some of my favorite sitcoms of all time, they never really got me in the feels, you know? Yeah. I mean, and it could also be that they'll shift tonally episode to episode, which can be okay. Like, you know, when you have there's lots of shows, you know, with writers' rooms where sometimes you're like, oh yeah, that is a very, very like solid emotional episode. And like, that's a really, really standout, hilarious episode, but where like nothing really significant happened in terms of like character arc. So I guess hey man, guess good news. We've got over 100 episodes to find out to answer this question. And should we move on to segments? I think we should move on to segments. And now, segments. So, segments. Yeah, no, I think we should move on to segments. We can move on to our segments. And now, segments. Segments with Sean and Toria. Okay. That's our segment transition where Toria chokes. Clearing someone gives me the Heimlich. You hear me gag a little. It's out. I'm okay. That's like, you know, that video of the woman, the news reporter falling in the grapes and going, ow, 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 ow. Yeah, that was a very, very famous, that was like when the internet was just during the spread stuff like that. I think she lost her job. I think she lost her job after that. It was like bad. Oh no, really? Is that true? Yeah, something like that. We expect anyway. That got me sad. I know. Who knows? Sad update. Early. But so one of my favorite lines moments was when Fran is preparing for Mrs. Sheffield's arrival, like after the flower shop, but before his mom's arrived. She goes, I had Grandma Yetta make her famous prune Danish because after she goes, she's going to need it after all that traveling. And just the idea that like Fran's idea of a thoughtful gift for someone is something that will make them not be constipated. Like it's just very practical and thoughtful, but also gross. I like that. It was very Jewish in my mind. Yes. I was like, that's a very Jewish gift. It's like, I'll help you with your constipation. Yes. Like the idea that like, let's have lots of foods around the house that will, you know, help this person's bowels readjust. And then when Mrs. Sheffield is criticizing Maxwell's outfit and he's not dressed well enough. And she's like, I can hardly tell you apart from the servants. And he goes, oh, well, that's easy. I'm the one actually working. And then Fran is leaning on the counter, flipping through a magazine in the background. And she goes, that's hilarious. I can't wait to tell Niles when he gets back from the track, which just also made me laugh. The idea that
no one's doing anything.
No one's doing any work.
I liked, there's a scene where Fran is talking to Mrs. Sheffield, and Maxwell walks in and he goes, when did you two get so thick? Meaning like so close. Mm-hmm. And Fran goes, well, for me, it happened around the 14th, but she must have had salty nuts on the plane.
Yes. So she thinks it means bloated.
Bloated.
Yep. And then I did also really like that line where Mrs. Sheffield's like, I know what you're up to. A mother doesn't raise her son for 4 years before boarding school and not know him. Like, so sad.
No, that was another line that I was watching with Elizabeth, and she went, "Oh my God, 4 years!"
yes. And then, and actually, I really liked Mr. Sheffield's response to that, where he's like, "Oh, that was you? I thought it was Niall disguised as Kim Novak." And then I just wrote, Niles and his relationship is so weird. I was like, did Niles like rock him to sleep when he was a baby?
So weird. It's
like
so weird.
But then again, it makes me like laugh so much that he is probably so codependent on this man. Almost like a mother and father substitute in his butler.
Yes. Well, he had a philandering father and a non-existent mother. I mean,
yeah, so like the poor 10-year-old butler boy is like the closest he knows to.
Right, and he was like 10. I forgot that.
I know, but that's right also because, Miles is the help, lower class.
And he's not that much older than him.
Has to raise this boy who's now a child like baby me. I just love it so much.
There was a great Sylvia throwaway line when they're doing the fitting for Fran's wedding dress. And they're all like snacking, and Sylvia picks up like a glass bowl and she just yells, Morty, can you stop sucking the chocolate off the Raisinets?
I literally had it and then I deleted it because I was like, Sean's going to say.
It's such a good line.
It's such a, Morty, quit sucking the chocolate off the Raisinets. And then putting them back in the bowl. Yes. It's so gross, but also such a very specific, funny character detail.
So gross.
And then I think
she delivers it so well. There's like a tired exasperation where it's like she's clearly yelled this at him before.
And then Yiddish. Are we ready for Yiddish?
I am ready.
So we had mishpaka, which means family, because Sylvia says to Mrs. Sheffield, like, call me mom, we're family, mishpaka, and literally spits on his face. She says it.
Yeah.
And we also had schmear. Which we've had before.
I think we've covered before.
For
Mishpacha
sure.
is a good one. I like mishpacha.
Mishpacha.
That's like one of the most Jewy Yiddishy words that I can think to say.
You know what? Oh, I actually I was going to share this with you. We got a new review where someone said, like, I feel like I found my mishpacha, which was so cute.
Oh, that's adorable.
Yeah. So I really
welcome.
You'll get to this episode in about, a year and a half.
Shalom, you are part of our mishpacha.
Yep, the nanny mishpacha.
Yeah.
Or wait, the Oh Mr. Sheffield mishpacha, I should say.
The Oh Mr. Chef mishpacha.
Yeah. Oh, I wish if we had been like more clever, we would have titled our social media something like
no one knows how to spell mishpacha.
That's true. I'm not even sure when I Googled it.
Exactly.
And then in terms of nanny trivia, this just made me laugh. One of the most commonly Googled phrases when you search for the nanny is the nanny a true story?
What?
Which, it's so funny because it's like, it's a concept, not like a movie. It's like but then I'm like, maybe people are wondering if it's true to Fran Drescher's life, which
maybe that's what it is because her name is Fran and she plays someone named Fran.
But also makes very little sense because then would she have been a nanny, then married someone, and then become an actress? So I don't know. It just,
before
really
she became an actress, this this was her life before she developed this TV show and sold the rights and then started.
I'm like, maybe that's what someone means, or maybe they literally mean it in this of like you do when you see a movie and you wonder if it's a true story.
Is this a true story? Oddly enough, that's also the most searched term when people are looking at Alf trivia too. The show Alf. Is this a true story?
Also dinosaurs.
Hey, Willie. Dinosaurs.
My baby.
Not the mama. Not the mama.
You know what? If we ever do another podcast like this, I would do dinosaurs.
I would do dinosaurs too. I really want to do Night Court, but I can't get anyone interested to do Night Court with me.
That's the thing is I'm shocked. It's a testament to Night Court because it sounds so boring.
Dude, it's so good. It is like 30 Rock before 30 Rock, to the point where 30 Rock did a 2-episode arc where they're obsessed with bringing Night Court back. Do you remember that?
I kind of do, actually.
It's like Kenny is like obsessed with Night Court, and so they like recreate the Night Court set and they like bring the cast back together. Yeah.
I mean, I'd watch an episode or two, but it doesn't spark joy.
Dinosaurs would be a fun one to do, honestly. That would be great
because it's so weird, and I think it's probably manageable. But anyway, well,
it's only I think it's only 2 seasons long.
Yeah, well, we could do it.
It was
that would be a very fun one to do because it's so weird. It's just
all
beyond
right. When we finish Danny, let's revisit dinosaurs. I would do dinosaurs. That would be fun.
We'll call it. We'll come up with Dinostories or something. But okay, and then for the Fran or the CC. I think this might be an episode where neither – I don't think there was anything specific about either of them that spoke to me, at least, as –
Is the Fran or the CC in this one?
Yeah.
No, I would never accept a proposal in this way, and I don't think you would either. You know, like it was so obviously not a good time to propose or the good reasoning to do it that it was kind of shocking she even said yes in the moment.
Yeah. And I don't think either of us are the types who were like planning our weddings as little kids. Like what? No. I mean, to be fair, I guess that's more a trope of little girls and little boys. But like,
I was actually planning your wedding since I was a little kid. I've been thinking about it since like 10 years old.
And I appreciate that because you know I don't like to plan things.
That's right.
So you've really taken the load off there.
We first met each other well into our 20s and 30s. Yes. I was like, so this is going to sound crazy, but
I think you have excellent taste, and I've liked everything you've thrown at me so far.
What do you think of this crystal theme I'm going for?
That would be fun if you got to plan someone else. I would rather honestly plan somebody else's wedding than my own.
All right, well, so you heard it here first, listeners. If you've got a wedding that you need planned, give Toria Sheffield a call. Or you can find her on Oh Mr. Chef Pod, which is all of our social names, Twitter, Instagram. I don't think we have a TikTok, but Oh Mr. Chef Pod. If we did have a TikTok, that's what it would be.
What would we possibly even have to put on
We wouldn't
TikTok?
Put nothing.
We do have a very special – oh, you guys already saw it.
You already saw it, and you loved it, and I really hurt my foot, but now it's long-healed. So old story.
Yeah, it is an old story now, but just some context for that video. Sean legitimately was on crutches.
I tore my calf and was on crutches for a week after we shot that Laverne and Shirley gag, and was leaving that Monday for Disneyland and had to do all of Disneyland in a wheelchair. Which after one day of pushing me in the wheelchair, Elizabeth was like, my arms hurt. This is too hard. And then I had to get one of those electric ones that I moved myself.
Oh, yeah. Do you have pictures of that? Or video?
I'll never show them.
Oh, my God. I had no idea. Well, the thing is, we'll also say this real quick. It was very funny because my friend came over to help us shoot it. And Sean, no sooner did he tell us how the doctor had told him all these ways he needed to get himself into shape. And we kind of laughed about it. Like he's exaggerating. Did he skip and break a leg basically? But it was unrelated to the other stuff. It was actually probably because you had been exercising more that it happened. But it was a very funny thing where he was like, I'm old and this and that. And we're like, he's exaggerating. And
meanwhile, I've lost 13 pounds since I saw you last.
Are you kidding me?
Nope. I changed my diet.
Actually, wait, I've been seeing these delicious, delicious meals that you guys have been posting. They look so good and they look so healthy.
Yep. All right, wait, we should end the show and then I'll tell you about it.
Okay.
But yeah, everyone, congratulate me on my weight loss. I'm doing a good job and I'm getting healthy, so I live forever.
Yay!
And
he's
and
not
as
gonna
always,
be one of those old, gross, weird dads. He's going to be like a younger old dad.
Yeah, younger old dad in good shape. And as always, if you like the show, rate it and do the things on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And every once in a while, we put up like a fun poll or something on Spotify. I don't know if people have been seeing those, but I've been doing it because Anchor lets me do it. So check that out. And as always, we'll be back next week. And goodbye, Torio.
Goodbye. The Flashing Girl from Flushing.
The flashing girl from Flushing. The nanny named Fran.
Oh, Mr. Sheffield.
Miss Fine.